So let's start here. Let's actually just start at the start. And 10 weeks ago, probably about that long ago, you and Merritt and I had coffee and we talked for the first
Mhm.
time. So what was going on? Like the story of what was going on for you with injuries and soreness and just things not working well.
Yeah, so this over the winter into the spring, I started training for what was gonna be a K, and then I just kept having like reoccurring, like little injuries kept happening, starting with just like a plantar fascia injury, some inner ankle pain, but it eventually became like full blown shin splints, and my left leg just like was not recovering, and I was just getting frustrated because I was spending so much time like resting from running and trying to like figure out how to get this better and figure out what was weak and which muscles to strengthen. And I was literally like going crazy, like had so many files saved on my phone to try to like develop my own strength training plan. And what I found is it just like wasn't consistent because I was overwhelmed. And that's when Merritt kind of pointed me to you.
Like what did you do with your training volume, and then what did that mean for events that you had scheduled?
Well, the 100K that I had scheduled was in April, and then I had gone down in distance to a 50K when things just kept getting in the way. Like small injuries kept getting in the way of consistent running training. And so I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be ready to do 100K when April came. And then kept training for the 50K, and then the raging shin splints happened, which just stopped running altogether. So when I met with you, I think I had been off running for like 5 or 6 weeks.
And how did that feel? Like how was your mental, your headspace through that time?
Mentally, I was not okay because, well, running was a huge outlet for me just for stress, and I had put a lot of time already up to this point. So, of course, it was discouraging to like do all this training and then feel like I just kind of like threw it away because I had to recover from an injury.
Yeah.
So, overall, just like discouragement was probably the number one feeling.
I feel like you told me this and then Merritt verified it, or maybe it was the other way around. But of you like up at 3 o'clock in the morning on your phone,
Yeah.
Googling and looking at like Instagram search. Before you and I started working together, what all had you done or tried or you were looking into to try to address this stuff?
Oh my gosh, there was times Merritt found me like at 3 a.m. rolled over and I was like on Reddit reading about people's experiences with shin splints and like what helped them the most. So anything from that to like literally searching on TikTok like how do I strengthen like my posterior tibialis, like yeah, and it was just overwhelming. Like I mean the internet's full of information and you don't know like what's actually good advice and what's not. And so before I knew it, I just had this folder that was just packed with all these clips and snapshots and videos and links to YouTube. And it was overwhelming to try to like implement those by myself. And I found myself going crazy because I could not implement every single thing that I was researching.
And you had done, so if I remember correctly, gait analysis 2 times.
Yes.
And so let's walk through like all of the like clinical stuff that you had tried. Gait analysis, PT, what else?
Okay. Yeah. So then spent money on multiple gait analysis, going to PT, massage, chiropractors, buying lots of compression socks, just like desperate for like something. And of course, there was just like not going to be one easy fix. So I was like, well, I'm just going to try all the modalities I can find. And before I know, I was spending lots of money on recovery equipment, appointments.
And so what was the breaking point that you were like, okay, let's try something different, that you agreed to sit down and talk to me. What caused that shift?
I think the week that Merritt suggested I meet with you, I had actually tried to go for a run. And it had been about 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks at that point, not running. And I had been just driving myself mad every day, trying to like search through my files and do strength and mobility exercises to do something. And when I went for this run, like I felt okay on the run. But then later that night, my shin started hurting. And so that was just frustrating because to that point I had spent what I thought was like 4 or 5 weeks of like really strengthening my legs and tendons, and it just like wasn't working. And so that mental breakdown where it's like, yeah, we need to send you to Michael.
And so then when you and I started to work together, was there anything that you were worried about? Did you have doubts?
I mean, I was pretty like optimistic from the get go, like willing to try anything at this point. But of course, there's like a part of me that's like, I don't know, maybe this is just gonna be like, like some gym personal trainer just like telling me my core is weak or like I need to strengthen my like gluteus medius and like that's gonna be it.
So let's actually like let's pivot to that. So getting into like the stuff that we were doing from the jump, what was most surprising about the work that you and I were doing together?
I think you asked like really good like questions from the get go. Like you looked at like my shoe wear pattern, you assessed my external and internal hip range of motion, which I just like wasn't expecting. And it just seemed like there was like you have a lot of knowledge about other things other than just like do calf raises. Cause I think that was like my thought was, oh, I just need to do calf raises and I need to strengthen my soleus. And then I met with you and we started looking at things up the chain. And it was like, oh, my hip mobility could be affecting how like my foot is landing and where I'm putting like wear on my body.
I remember as we were going through that, you and I talked a lot about like the impact on the hip, the rotation that was available at the hip, and then what that would mean for the foot. There's always this is our best guess, but when we think about that lack of internal rotation on the hip, so the hip externally rotates, the foot's going to then land externally rotated. And now we actually have an explanation for like weird forces that are now overloading those peroneal and posterior tib.
So I think working with you addressed more of a big picture, obviously, than working with PT or the things that I read on Reddit. I remember looking at Reddit and it was just like, do this banded like gas pedal resistance band exercise with your foot, strengthen your anterior tib. And I was getting frustrated because I was like, but it's like my medial side of my shin that hurts. And then I go to PT and they're just like giving me more band exercises essentially, and it's just focusing on like strengthening the tendon with a band but never working up the chain, right? Like never like addressing like any sort of range of motion. And so that was a huge difference from the get-go, is that I feel like you looked at the bigger picture.
So you went and got gait analysis two different times. And will you share what did they tell you? What did they see when you did gait analysis?
It was also like a little bit discouraging because I was kind of expecting like, oh, I'm gonna go to a gait analysis, they're gonna tell me that like what they're gonna find this one thing that I'm doing wrong in my form and I'll just work on like fixing that. And I feel like the overall analysis was like, well, you have good running form, there's nothing that's like strikingly like standing out. I didn't really feel like I got like an answer to that. They kind of like used words like maybe you like overpronate slightly, but the way you do it is so gradual that like it shouldn't be like affecting your shins essentially. And so I just feel like I never got an answer of like, okay, so well, should I try to fix that? And then I spend money on like stability shoes and orthotics and all like more money just down the drain.
And I remember that you and I talked a whole bunch about like this language of overpronation and gait
Mm-hmm.
mechanics. I think part of the story there with the gait analysis was they were like giving you some information, but they weren't telling you if this is something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't really, there wasn't really like a solution that they presented. Even like when they told me like maybe you overpronate slightly, it just seemed like they weren't even really like confident in that like the pronation was enough to cause like injury or that I was doing. Yeah, it left me a little bit discouraged, honestly. I think that like me really emphasizing that hip internal rotation has helped me like keep my toes pointed forward when I'm running. And I feel like that has taken some stress off of those medial shins for sure.
Yeah, definitely. As we were going through our 12 sessions, how did your mindset and how did your emotions change? What changed for you internally as we were going?
Well, over the course of those sessions, I definitely got more confidence, like in my ability to run and to run injury free. And I think that you saw me a lot coming to the gym, and I would just like be going on about how, oh, I was just like rubbing my shin and it slightly burns. Like I'm concerned that like we're gonna train too much and the shin splints are gonna come back. Like that was like my greatest fear. And I think I verbalized that to you a lot.
This is session 1 or session 2. I remember saying to you something on the order of like, you are just so fucking smart. Your nature is to pull in so much information
Mm-hmm.
um, about things you care about. And you obviously truly care about this.
Yes. So when we started, I remember we really like assessed like my pelvic stability, and you had me do some exercises like split squats. And You didn't really tell me what you were watching for, so I could do it like as naturally as possible. And then we really just talked about controlling my pelvis rotation. And then we worked on just like hip mobility, like with like hip airplanes. And I was surprised that like my homework I felt like was pretty simple. Like it's pretty like simple listed. I mean, I think in the beginning it probably only started with like 6 to 8 exercises, which was really helpful compared to this file that I had of all these like screenshots and videos and like snapshots from people on like Reddit and YouTube, where I was just really focusing on just strengthening my calves. And this was like a huge contrast to that. But I really wanted to give my sessions with you, you know, my full attention, and I did everything that you told me to do and it worked. I mean, it just was crazy like that you knew like to address something so far up the chain to address the lower leg. And I feel like I felt pretty like ease of mind almost immediately after a few sessions with you because I wasn't overwhelmed by like this entire list of things to do. Like it was very simple and it wasn't super time consuming. Like I could do my homework some nights in 30 minutes, you know.
So we got started because you had a bunch of pain. We spent a lot of time on lumbopelvic stability and internal rotation of the leg and control of the ankle and foot pressure through the gait cycle. Those were our big
Yeah.
things that we were doing in our sessions and you were doing in your homework. And then a week ago, you sent me a text and said, "So I did a thing." And you sent me a photo of having done the thing. And will you tell us about the thing?
A few weeks ago, I had been feeling like pretty good. I even did, I think I texted you a few weeks ago and told you that I did like a 27 hike run and I didn't have any pain the following days. And I felt really good during that run. That had been my longest run probably this whole year. And I've always wanted to do the Skyline 55K. It's in my hometown of Ogden on my favorite trails and two of my favorite peaks, Ben Lomond and Lewis Peak. And I just decided after that 27-mile training run to be like, I'm going to sign up for it. Like, it's in a couple weeks and I feel good. And then I texted you after. I think I was kind of skeptical going into the race a little bit. Like there was still this little part of me that was like, oh, I'm nervous. Like, what if my leg starts hurting? And even at the beginning of the race, I had this mindset of like, even if I experience pain, like I'm just gonna finish this race. Like this might be the only race that I do this year, and I'm just gonna go for it and send it. And to my surprise, was not in pain during the race. And I mean, 24 hours went by, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna tell Michael, like, I'm so excited about this. Like, I'm not having pain. We raced, and I think I was hesitant to tell you before because I was just like, I don't want to jinx this, you know? Like, this race, I'm just gonna go out and try because we didn't think I'd run a 50K till September. Like, that was kind of our goal through this whole process. And to my surprise, like I hit my goal time of 7.5 hours. There was 7,200 vertical feet of climbing. And so like a lot of descending too. Like I'm just like pounding these downhills out. And that's what I was most nervous would cause pain. And it didn't. And I ended up finishing third and I was really, really pleased with my results. And I feel like I got there because of the training with you, honestly, like because something clearly has changed with my body. And it's also like my mindset has changed too. Like I feel so much more confident and comfortable to go out and do the thing that I love and not live in this fear of like I'm gonna get in an injury cycle again. And that feels good. Which is so funny because Merritt, my boyfriend at one point, who also goes to you, he had asked me or something if I had mentioned it to you. And I was like, no, I'm not going to tell until after the race. And he's like, well, maybe that should be a red flag to you that you don't want to tell your coach. And I was like, well, I just don't want to jinx it. Like, I'm just so nervous. Like, I was in my mind still like, this could still go really poorly, you know? And so, but we've done the work and it went better than I could have hoped. So,
Yeah. I am remarkable. I'm incredibly proud of you for how you were able to like just like jump in with me and trust the process. How you were able to have really honest conversations with me about like what was probably going to be the right thing to do in terms of like running and like getting back into it.
oh, I was gonna say I am something else I appreciated about like my one-on-one sessions with you is we didn't just do like the strength training the whole time. Like we did talk about like my running and my running time, and I feel like you kind of helped me lay out this vision for how the summer was gonna go, like how we were like you helped me set some like realistic like short term goals when I started running again, and we looked at it from like an emphasis on time on feet versus just like mileage. And I think that time on feet training has helped a ton too for me to not go out and overtrain.
What does it mean for you emotionally and mentally to be able to just know that you can go out and handle these things now?
I feel like an entirely like different athlete than I was in May or June. I feel like I'm just like more in tune with my body and listening when something doesn't feel right. And I feel like I've got the tools now. And obviously I like have you to go to as like my like source if something's like a new injury triggers or flares up, like I'm confident in this process that like we could figure out the root cause and address it. I got so tired of these band-aid fixes, and I feel like we have found like a real solution. And you have always emphasized through this whole process that this is about like the longevity of the sport. And you asked me, I think from like the first time I met with you, like, is this something you want to do the rest of your life? And I'm like, yes, this is like, sorry, like I get emotional, I guess, because it's something that's really important to me. It is something that I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I love running mountains more than anything, and I appreciate working with a coach who like sees me as a person with like hopes and dreams, not just someone who's looking for a season goal or like a short-term benefit from this. And I think that was huge for me at the beginning of the summer to just admit with you that like, hey, this might not be your best season, you might not run your fastest times, you might not do all the races you want to do, but that's okay. And you help me redefine what it means to succeed. And I feel like I have had a really successful season just from coming back from injury and being able to say, like, hey, I can run 34 miles with vertical comfortably. And that to me is winning this year. Thank you.
And you fucking took, and then the photo is like you took third place. Like that, just that whole thing is amazing. So what's next? What are the next big things for you since you're able to get back out and do the time and do the mileage and do the vert?
Keep training for some future races coming up. Yeah, I just want to keep on this same trajectory. I feel like I have a good habit now of going to the gym at least twice a week and doing like the main lifts that you send me and the workouts, and then I've got like the little things that I can do a couple other days a week to maintain just like core and like tendon integrity and keep building my running plan.
And I think you're bearing the lead here, which is you have a registration for Leadville 100 for next summer, right?
The 50-mile qualifier.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, I'm not qualified for Leadville 100 yet, but that would be the ultimate goal.
And what is it? What do you have to? What's the performance on the 50 miler you have to hit?
You just have to place like a certain like percentage within the field. So it kind of depends on times. I honestly haven't done too much like digging into it. Again, I think I've just been kind of like focused on like getting just like the running endurance and like regular plan back, and then I can start really like focusing on like what times I need to hit. If that makes
Awesome. And I think probably my last question for you, if someone that you were on a trail with, right, you're out on at a race or an event or hanging out on a trail, and
Mhm.
someone was dealing with pain, what would you tell them about working with me, working with us at Mountain Strong?
I would tell them that I, first of all, can relate that is probably discouraging and there's a lot of information out there, and you can very quickly start wasting time and money, right? With like PT, chiropractors, orthotics, equipment, like whatever. That so it's helpful to get with somebody like Michael who is going to like look at you as a human, look at like your range of motion, your mobility across your whole chain, and can really assess where you're weak. So you don't waste time strengthening things that maybe don't need emphasis or doing unnecessary exercises. Like for me, that's been huge because I hate wasting time. And it was just helpful to get with you, figure out our hypothesis. You always said you had like this one or two hypothesis for what was causing my injury, and we were just going to run with that. Because my anxiety sometimes, like you said, I'm an overthinker, and I would start addressing like all these other potential problems or potential causes, and you would just always take it back to these hypotheses that you had. And I think that helped me stay on track and not get overwhelmed.
One of the best things about working with you, Maddie, the whole time was how thoughtful you were and the questions that you would come in with. Was there probably three pieces that were super cool. One was just seeing how much you cared about it and how thoughtful you were. But then because you brought those things in, we could talk about it, and the ideas that you were researching or that you were getting fed by the algorithm, we could kind of like
Hmm.
put those into perspective and say, hey, like this idea is actually totally disconnected or doesn't make sense. This idea is connected, but it's not a primary. And then
Hmm.
here's an idea that actually is super important to think about and to deal with. And then the third is that all of those conversations also made me a better coach. I mean, you and I talked, how many times did we cover the notion of overpronation and what that means? And like when the gait analysis is saying, hey, maybe you overpronate a little bit, it's like, without having seen their video or heard exactly what they said, I was always kind of guessing, but we talked a lot about, well, what is overpronation and
Hmm.
what's the problem with it? And then, what are the mechanisms that can set us up for it? How do we address it? And just like
Yes.
all of those conversations made me so much better at like coaching you, but also just coaching movement in general. So it was awesome for me too.
Great. I'm glad that all of my questions were helpful. You again, you were just so good at like just like bringing me back on track, you know? Because I'd get this fear and anxiety build up, and then we would just bring it right back to what we were focusing on. And it worked. I mean, I think your hypotheses were clearly correct. So,
That's the thing that we were aiming for the whole time.
yes, that's why I feel like it's already been like a successful year. And I mean, I really appreciated being able to come to you and like talk. Like, I feel like a lot of our sessions, like, we would spend like the first like 15 minutes sometimes just like talking and addressing like my concerns. And I'd come to you and I'd be like, oh, I just finished a run and I have a little bit of inner ankle pain. And you would always just like, well, what on a scale of 1 to 10, like, what is it? And I think your words were, if it's like 3 or less, you're probably, we're just riding that like fine line of like improving. That's, we expect to have a little bit of pain before as we get stronger. And I think that gave me so much peace of mind that like even like a tiny little pain wasn't going to blow up into this huge injury cycle all over again.
Yep. And it also it's entirely normal. It's entirely understandable and logical for you've had pain, you had lower leg pain that kept you for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then it starts getting better, like it's getting better, and then you have this little bit of discomfort. That little bit to fixate on that little bit of discomfort and to be really worried about it is actually totally logical, right? Like it's
Yeah.
actually totally appropriate. And sometimes what we need is, it doesn't have to be from somebody else, but we need to have a framework of like, well, how worried should I be, or what's my thing? And yeah, you're right. I think what we said was if it's 3 or less, then we just monitor it, but it's like we don't actually even really think about it. And the other one was like, I think you had some shin pain. Like whenever you'd like rub your shin, it would like, you'd
Yeah, I
rub your
told you
shin.
that like I rub my knuckles into my shin and then there's like a little burn, and you were just like, well, let's like really clarify what you are saying. Like, you're saying you rub your knuckles hard into tissue and it hurts. Like, duh, you know?
Right, right. And it's that, and it's, again, this was the thing that has always been so beautiful about working with you, is that I think there's a lot of other people who have that shit in their head and they're like, my shin is hurting, and I'm like, tell me more about that. They're like, I don't know, my shin hurts. and
Yeah.
and what's happening is they're rubbing their knuckles into tib anterior, and they're like, and it hurts when I do that, but they're not telling me, they're just saying it hurts. And it's like, well, you were transparent of like what was going on. And
Hmm.
from the get-go, from the first time you and I had coffee, it was really clear that part of what was happening for you was this, like, your fear of getting hurt, your fear of pain, and your ego drive to go run and like go spend time in the mountains. That those two were
Yes.
You wanted to go run, like being in the mountains was your identity. Like the first time that Merritt ever told me about you, he's like, yeah, my girlfriend is a fucking scary like mountain climbing monster. And um and it was like, so that's who you are. And you had this injury that kept you from expressing that. And so it's just like, man, like when ego and fear are battling, we just never really know what to do. And
Hmm.
so, in all of those conversations, my goal has always been to kind of like quell the ego need with like, hey, here's the path, and then quell the fear of like, well, actually, like none of it's that bad.
Yeah. Yes. Like I think that illustrates so well just like the internal conflict that I was having with every single run. And now that feels good to just go out there and just be like, okay, like I'm stronger. But even if, like, I kind of play that tape forward of like, even if something happens, like, even if I get injured, even if something happens with the shin or a new injury, like, I have a resource to go to. Like, we will figure out a solution. Like, it's not permanent. And that, I think, gives me such peace of mind.
Yep, 100%. And I think that like that's yeah, it's like you kind of realize when you say that it's you're verbalizing this realization of like tweaks do happen. Like you're going to go
Mhm.
and you're going to go spend like you're going to spend 24 hours on the on the peaks of Colorado in a year or two, and you're going to like you're probably going to come back with a little tweak, and it's no big deal because there's like always a way of addressing it.
Mhm. Yes. Uh-huh. This has been fun. I was also gonna tell you that I was thinking as we were like getting ready to do this video. I remembered that I had left knee pain last season, like off and on, and like it's like so bad that finally when I met my insurance deductible, I was like, I'm just gonna get an MRI on it just to see what's going on. And of course, like the MRI reading came back like pretty like normal, nothing's torn, obviously nothing's going on in there. But I was thinking like this summer I haven't had like any issues with that left knee. Like I've completely forgot about my knees. Like I don't know, like those sissy squats or like all the things that we're doing are also addressing just like overall strength, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it actually, it's like, and if you had said, hey, I've got knee pain, what we would have done would have been so mildly different. You know, I had you do, from the very beginning, I had you doing a whole lot of the ankle rock step through thing
Hmm.
where you're paying attention to foot pressure and we're moving the ankle through its full range of motion that it should go across through the gait cycle. If
Hmm.
you had said knee pain, we would have done that exercise would have been replaced by like a knees over toes, like the knees over toes, the ATG split squat,
Huh?
where you're going to rock up onto the foot, you're going to drive your knee as far forward so you can get into really deep knee flexion. We would have done sissy squats earlier, but like the structure of our training would have been exactly the same. Let's work lumbo-pelvic stability so that the knee can track forward.
Yes.
Let's deliberately build strength in the quads and the glutes. Probably would have done some like cable loaded knee extensions and some more, and we would have worked hamstring earlier. Basically all those things we did. So it actually just like, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I
Knees
think
and
it's
hips are
definitely
working
improved
better.
my knee tracking because yeah, I don't know, to run like 7,200 vert like at like like full like race pace speed. I think that normally I would have been a little anticipating of like, oh, probably that left knee pain. But I think that's cool. Like we've strengthened my knee tendons and improved just overall movement patterns, like the knee tracking.
Absolutely. And especially if those were some aggressive downhills on that
Hmm.
race, it's like that's where we would have expected that like man, and it can be anywhere from like patellar tendonitis, just from the forces going into the quad, to actually some like deeper knee structure. And you're in like positional stuff, like rotation stuff, I think is probably more going to impact if we're missing internal rotation or we're landing rotated all the time, we're probably going to see more tweak to like ACL, MCL. If we are just weak through quad and patellar tendon, and through hamstring as a supporter of that kind of the rate of deceleration,
Hmm.
it's like that's going to be where we see more patellar tendonitis. And so like it's all working. It's all great.
It's all working. Feels really good.